So I have been in Seoul for 3 weeks now, and my apartment is finally clean enough. And so I wanted to give you guys an apartment tour of my new apartment here in Seoul. So here we go. And that's it, that's the tour. So I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube for Seoul apartment tours, and they're like this glamorous, glorious, apartment that only people with no credit card debt and no student loans can afford. I am not in that category, so this is my apartment. To be fair, this is actually a pretty decent apartment. It was the only apartment I could get that was unfurnished because I already had my own furniture and I didn't want other people's furniture. Also because I don't sleep on a bed. I sleep on a futon on the floor. I needed an unfurnished apartment, and this was pretty much the only one that the real estate agency showed me without a bed. Now, if you become a teacher in Korea, you're probably gonna get free room and board, and you will get an apartment. You will not have a choice in that apartment whatsoever. It will already be furnished, but you can't rearrange the furniture. That's the downside. But the upside is it's completely free and you get to live in Korea, so why not? Luckily, because this place was already unfurnished, I was able to kind of turn it into a creator's paradise, so I am happy. Let me give you a more thorough tour of the apartment, starting from the door. So I actually have two doors. So I have the locks, and then your usual place to leave your shoes, and then the usual shoe cabinet. This spot is really nice. I'm planning to decorate it. I do have this nifty little thing that my student gave me, though. If I turn it on, it becomes like Beauty and the Beast up in here. Anyways, I'm hoping to get a painting and put it here from maybe Insadong. Insadong has a lot of artistic and handmade crafts, so I would like to go there and pick something out, maybe do a little decoration. I lived in Daegu for 4 years and I never decorated my apartment because I don't care. But anyways, here's the door, and then I have that door, and here's the bathroom. Now, Korean bathrooms don't have showers per se. They have shower heads, and you get the entire room wet, which actually doesn't bother me, except for that my washing machine is in here. And I'm American, and we don't put washing machines in the bathroom, so I'm afraid to get electrocuted just about every time I shower. But I wear these rubber shoes, and pretend that that will save me. Here's my refrigerator. As you can see, it's on the outside of my kitchen. Korean kitchens are pretty tiny. This came with a gas stove, but gas stoves kind of hurt my sinuses, so I got an electric stovetop thingy. I actually don't have any cabinets or anything, so this is where all of my art supplies and my sewing machine is. So that's good. I'm planning to go around and look for some fabric stores or something, because I sew and tailor a lot of my own clothes. I haven't sewn anything from scratch in a long time, but that's another story. Back to the tour. So dishes here that I use all the time. You can see it's not a minimalist lifestyle, and I don't care. And cabinets. Here's my food. Actually, this is a pretty decent space. I think it's not bad at all. So I have lots of place for tea because I am a tea hoarder. This is my draining rack, and then the coolest thing about this is I can slide this door shut so I don't have to look at my dirty dishes. That is the best part. And then here is my desk, and I have some storage underneath along with my laundry. Don't look too close to the laundry. My desk, I needed my desk because I need a desk as large as humanly possible with all of the nonsense that I do. And then my keyboard. I was most afraid that I wouldn't have space for this keyboard because Korean apartments are just so tiny. But it fits perfectly, praise the Lord. And then I have my gigantic mirror, which I love more than I should probably, and this lovely carpet that I do this about, 10 minutes a day, and I understand cats so much better now. But really the main function of this gigantic mirror, other than being good for practicing photography poses, is actually it hides my gigantic suitcase because there are no closets in here. And here is my bookshelf with, you know, books and random stuff, my vision board, which I need to revision. And of course I needed a wall to put all of my post-it notes when I write novels. This is what I do. I write the post-its. The white post-its are scenes I have not written yet, and the colored ones are ones that are finished. I need to update this as well. So when I was looking for an apartment, I had to make sure to find a place that had good wall space, because I wanted something for my writing, I wanted something for my goals, and I wanted something for my YouTube videos. So this wall is actually pretty perfect. I can practice a lot of photography and YouTube with this nice big blank wall. Moving on, here is my clothes rack slash, really it's just a drying rack, because there is no way to dry my clothes unless I put them on the roof, which I don't want to do. So this is my clothes drying rack, and this is where I put my blankets and my sewing projects, which I'm not going to show you because it's messy. And let's see, you know, other stuff that has no space anywhere else. This is my bed, or futon, I guess you could say, which I fold up into a little couch chair thingy. This is my piano bench, which is now just a charging station at the moment, but I can clear it off and move it over here should I ever stop being so lazy and actually play the piano. So that is my tour of my apartment. Actually, I forgot one thing. Let me show you the view here. It's actually not a bad view. It has really good lighting. This was another reason I chose this apartment. It was because the lighting was really good, and my view isn't too bad. My other apartment just had a view of a straight wall about 1 foot away from me, and the neighbor's lights would come into my room. This has a street light somewhere. Where's the street light? I lost the street light. This had a street light somewhere. I'm not crazy. Okay, I know some of you will ask this, so I will give you some numbers. So rent in Korea is actually really cheap. On average, you're going to be paying probably $500 a month if you live in Seoul, but probably closer to $600 or $700 to be honest. If that is you're paying, because usually if you work for the public school system, they give you the apartment. You don't have a choice in that apartment, but you do get the apartment for free. Now the problem is going to be the deposit. The rent is cheap, but the deposit is insane. So if you move to Korea straight, no assistance, your school does not exist, it's not paying for you, then you will probably pay $5,000 deposit, or my apartment was actually a $10,000 deposit, but my school paid for it, so I didn't have to worry about that. And if you are looking to become an English teacher, you probably won't have to worry about that either. But if you come here with another job or come here on your own without a school, it's gonna be a little more pricey. You also have to remember that Seoul is one of the most expensive places in the world to buy groceries. So if you want a cantaloupe about this size, it's gonna cost you at least $10. Meat is fairly okay price-wise. So like this package of ground pork cost me about $6. It's actually a pretty decent size, and I feel like that's about what I would pay in America as well. Of course, you do have to remember that Korea does not have a lot of farmland, so anything like fruits and vegetables and dairy is going to be more expensive. But another good thing is that you probably won't need any sort of vehicle or car or anything like that. You can get pretty much anywhere by the subway system, but just get ready to use all of your glute muscles on a daily basis. So in Korea, what they'll say is the subway system is so convenient, and by convenience they mean the only way you can get anywhere, you must take it, and you must take 20 flights of stairs in order to get to the subway. And then you have to wait maybe 5 to 15 minutes, depending on which subway you're taking, for the subway to actually show up. And it will cost you about $1.30 every time you ride. So it costs 1,300 won, which is about $1.30 if you don't really care about conversion rates as much as I do. And that'll be for one way. So because I have to go 2 ways, I basically pay $2.60 a day. And so I'm just gonna round that up to $3 because sometimes I randomly have to take the bus or subway. So if you're taking the subway twice a day and it's $3 a day, 3, you're paying about $100, $93. I'm gonna check that math later. That's another finance you have to think about. So rent is going to cost you about $500 to $700 if you're paying for it. Food is going to cost you, sorry to say, it's going to cost you at least $350 a month, unless you are an amazing meal planner. And I hate to say this, but actually if you eat out, it's about the same exact price as eating in. So it'll still be $350, $400 for food. Not to mention the cafes are pretty expensive. I like to go to Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf because I like their options for non-coffee. I do drink some coffee. Usually I only drink mocha because I like chocolate more than I like coffee. They have teas, they have their own vanilla powder and their own chocolate powder. I don't know how this became a Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf plug, but stay with me. They make their own chocolate, they make their own powders, so they have some delicious options that are not coffee. Anyways, back to my point. That cost me at least $5 every time I go. That's for the cheapest thing on the menu, which is just tea. If I want coffee, it costs about $6.50. And that's gonna be the same for Starbucks or anywhere else that you go, unless you find love in Idia Coffee, which I do love Idia Coffee. Their cafes are just really small, so I can't really do a whole lot of schoolwork there if I go there. There's also some really good cafes called Venti. Daegu had Monster Coffee. I haven't seen Monster Coffee in Seoul yet. And those places are usually like $3 for, fancy coffee, $3.50, $4. So there are some options there if that's what you're into. But I have to say that going from Daegu to Seoul has not been the easiest transition. It's actually really hard when you move to another country because you have to relearn how to be a functioning adult. So when I first moved to Daegu, I had to learn where to buy groceries, I had to learn how to buy groceries, I had to learn which apps I could use to buy groceries online. Then I had to figure out how to use those apps because they were all in Korean. I did study Korean for 2 years before I moved to Korea, but I'm actually a terrible student and I can't do anything that involves rote learning. So in school, I failed pretty much everything that has anything to do with rote learning. If you want me to memorize something, it's not gonna happen. And in university, my major was video game design, so all we did was make video games, program video games. I didn't have to memorize anything, I just had to create projects, which is something I'm naturally good at, or became naturally good at. I don't know how you want to look at that. But language learning is just not something I'm really good at. So I don't speak any Korean even after 2 years of Korean school in America and 4 years of living in Korea. The truth is, I just don't have any chance to use it. At school, I speak completely in English. If I go out on the street, usually people speak English with me when they see that I'm a foreigner. I don't really have to talk to people if I go to a store or a restaurant because I can just point to the menu or point to the thing I like or just hand people my credit card. If there's a problem with my apartment, I just call HR and they call the landlord. People that usually want to hang out with me either already speak English or want to practice English, so they don't really use Korean all that much anyways. And quite frankly, every time I've been on a date in Korea, we've stuck to English because whenever we tried to use my Korean, it didn't go well. So I haven't given up completely on Korean yet, but I am not good at learning it. I'm not good at language learning. I actually have very low vocabulary in English. I do write books, but I actually just use the words that I know really well, and that's how I write books. Other things you have to worry about are finding doctors and taking out your trash, learning how to recycle. I've had a few problems with the apartment. My biggest problem is that I'm actually extremely claustrophobic, and my apartment just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and my anxiety just keeps getting higher and higher and higher. So I'm really not good in inside spaces. I'm not good inside small spaces or small rooms. Sometimes I'm not good in small houses. So this is just kind of a problem I've had for a while. It's something I'm working on with some professional help, but it doesn't erase the fact that I am claustrophobic and Seoul has very small apartments. I've also had some problems with the air conditioner not working, and it's the end of summer, so it's kind of humid and hot and hard to sleep. I spend a lot of my time trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B, which usually just leaves me completely exhausted because there are so many stairs on the subway. In Daegu, the subway stations were extremely small, and so it could take you maybe, if you did a full lap around the entire subway, it would take you maybe 3.5 minutes. There are like 12 subway lines in Seoul, so finding the right one is confusing. Daegu had 3 lines, but Gwangju is the winner with only 1 line that nobody takes because it's not connected to anything. Gwangju is actually my favorite city. What you should know about me is I'm actually from a pretty small town outside of LA, so I'm used to going to big cities to visit. I'm not used to living in big cities. And yes, Daegu was a very large city, but actually everything was kind of centralized, so I didn't need to go very far for anything. I could just walk or take a quick bus, but I never really needed to take the subway. I never really needed to go outside of the center of the city. But in Seoul, everything is extremely spread out, so you will have to take the subway or bus if you can find a decent bus. There's really no point in having a car, because if you take a car or taxi, it takes 3 or 4 times longer than if you just take the subway. So I am trying to adjust to Seoul, but I'm just not a big city kind of gal. I prefer wide open spaces and large rooms, so it's been kind of a hard adjustment. So let me give you kind of an example of what my life has been like in Seoul. So Friday I had to go to the chiropractor because I have a really bad hip and bad neck, and Daegu actually doesn't have chiropractors, so I went to an acupuncturist in Daegu. But the acupuncturists in Seoul are extremely traditional and actually extremely painful compared to the more, I guess you could say, modern acupuncturists. So I didn't really like the acupuncturist here. He gave me anxiety. So I decided to go to the chiropractor. Now the chiropractor is in Itaewon, and I have been to Itaewon before, but I went by bus. This time I took the subway to get there faster, and I forgot that Itaewon's subway station is in the basement 4th floor, so that's 4 floors of basement, and I literally had to take 15 flights of stairs because I couldn't find the elevator. Also, the escalator was broken. Not that I would take that anyways, because I have a fear of escalators. Yes, that is a real fear, look it up. So I took 20 flight of stairs to the chiropractor, and then I was adjusted, and it was very nice. The next day I came back to work, and my shoe broke while I was working, and so I'm kind of near the Myeongdong area, so I went down to Myeongdong, walking, of course, because I didn't know which bus to take. It was also a beautiful day, so I thought, hey, I can just walk. It's not that far, right? And then my legs started cramping up from all the Itaewon stairs, and so I was walking around in a broken shoe with my hamstrings completely cramped up. So I was trying to stretch them out in the middle of the sidewalk while walking in one of the busiest places in Seoul. And then also I couldn't find shoes because my feet are actually kind of big. It's actually kind of difficult to find an American size 9 if you have bigger feet. Most Korean shoes kind of run up to American 8. Now you can go to some more foreigner-friendly places like Zara or H&M, and you'll find some shoes, but you have to know where H&M and Zara are. So long story short, I didn't find any shoes, and I was exhausted, and my shoe was broken, so I just came home. Most of my days in Seoul have been spent just trying to keep up, since I don't have any internet in my apartment at the moment, because you need your alien registration card if you need to install internet, and mine will not be coming until this week. I have been going to cafes back and forth trying to keep up with my schoolwork, so really it's just been 3 weeks of me trying to figure out where can I buy food, how do I get places, and how can I do my homework in time. So I haven't really done any writing, I haven't really done anything fun, I guess you could say. And it's been hard to relax with a busted AC and full humidity. And also there's just the fact that I have to detach myself from Daegu, where I lived for 4 years and built a life, and reattach myself to Seoul. And that's really hard, even if you're excited for a new move or a new chapter, even if you know there's a lot more possibilities ahead than behind. It's really hard to just let go and be like, well, bye past, we're done with you. That's really not a thing. Human beings can't do that. It's actually extremely, extremely difficult to give up something comfortable and go somewhere uncomfortable and new, even if you want to go. So I've been a little homesick for Daegu for the past couple weeks, mainly for convenience and things that are familiar. And so last night I was actually having difficulty sleeping, and so I woke up and I was just praying, and I was just like, man, God, if you could just give me any comfort, just something that lets me know you're paying attention. And so I randomly looked at my bookshelf and I decided to pick up this book. This is an author, Jung Ho-sung. He is a Korean author, and he just writes some of the most amazing metaphorical stories I've ever read in my life. If you want to go to a cafe and weep publicly, I recommend his books, because that's what I do. And so I opened up this book, and so the first story is about a pottery jar that was created by a new potter. And so this young potter makes this pot, and he's automatically disgusted with it because it was his first pot and it didn't come out the way he wanted it to. And so the story comes from the perspective of the pot. And so the first thing the pot sees is the dissatisfaction of its master, and the pot is put aside next to an outhouse. And so the young potter comes out and he buries the pot up to the neck, and he turns it into a piss pot. And so the pot is wondering if its life is always just going to be a piss pot, if that's going to be its purpose forever. And so the seasons pass and snow comes and snows melt, and the people at the house come and scoop out the urine from the piss pot, and they use it to water all the fruits and vegetables in the field. Now, I think in gardening terms that would actually kill the plants, but this is supposed to be metaphorical, so just keep going with it. And so the piss pot is now full of water that can help the other plants and things grow around it. And so now the piss pot has been filled, and the junk it is filled with is now watering everything around it. And years later, the young potter dies, and the pot is abandoned once more. And as the years go by, they build a temple over the pot. And so the pot is watching this temple rise up, and it still has this ache to be someone or something of great value. And so a monk of the temple comes by and he sees that the pot has been buried. And so the monk brings the pot out of the ground and he puts the pot under the temple bell. And so when they ring the bell, the sound goes into the pot and comes back out, and it echoes further down the temple mountain because of the pot. And there's a line in the book that really gave me a whole lot of encouragement. And so the line comes from the pot's point of view when he's being created. And the line is, "When I first entered the kiln, I really thought I was going to burn to death. I had no idea that I was going to be born again as something different." So it really reminded me of mythology about like the phoenix and other things that are burned to ashes or put through the fire. There's even some biblical references. They do the same thing, going through the fire and coming out as something new and more valuable. And so that really was the encouragement I needed this week. And I hope it encourages you as well if there's any sort of fire that you are going through. You are probably just like this pot that is going through the fire and will come out something completely different. I do feel myself becoming more and more solidified in where I'm going and what I want to do as I sit here with all of these broken and exhausting things around me. So that is my apartment tour turned story time, but I hope you enjoyed it. I will be making more videos. I am still working on my next video for descriptions in my series How to Write a Sentence, where I teach you how to do creative writing if you are an absolute beginner. If you are overwhelmed by the creative process, this series will help you. I am working on episode 3 as we speak, so like and subscribe for that. More videos coming soon. I will see you tigers later. Continue being beautiful beasts. Peace!